Hello and welcome to Bluebeard Sports Radio. Everyday sports made simple for everyone. Today we have everyday expert Jim Moeller with us. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing well. How are you, Trey?
Doing great. Today we're going to talk about some college football things, some college sports. We're going to talk about the new name, image, and likeness that's passed with college sports. And we're also going to talk about the college football playoff expansion that got introduced this summer. So have you looked up and understand a little bit about what's going on with the name, image, and likeness?
I do. I did a little bit of research on it today, so this is what I know, and then we can talk about the implications of it. But it sounds like right now it's kind of a state by state thing. They don't have a federal law, and so certain states are adopting it. And I guess I don't know if you wanted to explain what it was about with amateur athletes, college athletes can now get paid for their name, image, and likeness. So that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, so name, image, and likeness. We're going to call it probably NIL from here on, shorten it up. It's basically called for individual rights to publicity. This is from an ESPN article by Dan Murphy. It's for amateur athletes in college level to accept money from businesses or promote their own appearance and their own companies through social media or any other outlet that they can get their likeness out there.
Yeah.
But as you said, I know there's roughly about 12 states have already passed laws about NIL rules and how the students can go about getting their likeness out there. And other states are just going to have to, other schools in other states are just going to have to kind of regulate their own rules. The NCAA, from what I understand, NCAA is trying to step back because they don't want any lawsuits against them on trying to overstep and make a rule before there is a federal law about it.
Yep. So another couple things I know about it. Schools still can't pay athletes. They can't entice them to go to their school with any type of money and things like that. Also, athletes are not permitted to use the image of their school. So if somebody's going to Alabama, they can't go on TV or whatever they're going to do and have a Roll Tide, shirt on or something like that, even if they obviously play for Alabama. So there's a couple of rules. I mean, so here's my take on it. I don't like it, but I think it was inevitable. I can remember years and years ago now when the Olympics were just only amateur athletes. You could not get paid. If you got paid in any professional way, you could not go to the Olympics. And then they did away with all that because it was getting really tough to, police. And that's what brought about the whole Dream Team thing years and years ago with Michael Jordan and others. And I remember thinking back then, well, that's disappointing. There's something about the quote purity of the amateur athlete that's now gone by the wayside. But even with that, it was inevitable, right? And I think that's the way it was with college athletes because, they, for better or worse, for better, I guess, college football is a big phenomenon, as everybody knows, right? That the schools get paid phenomenally. The coaches get massive salaries and things like that. And the students, they can't even get any type of compensation for anything. And so that kind of lends itself to all kinds of tricky business with alumni, trying to skirt rules to pay, athletes and things like that. So I think it was inevitable that it was going to take place. But having said that, I think they just, from what I've read, they kind of opened up the Pandora's box. They didn't really give much in the way of rules and guidelines. And so, the mind gets it can go all kinds of different directions, right? You can see an athlete that's, I just pictured Nick Saban driving down the street going toward the college, and all of a sudden one of his football players' image is outside a strip club or something,
Well,
which is perfectly legal as long as
it's funny you bring up
right. So there's a lot of, I don't know, I'll send it back to you, Trey, but it seems like it just opens itself up to a lot of funny business, at least at first,
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up Nick Saban. He mentioned, I think it was 2 days ago at the SEC conference announcements that his new star quarterback, Bryce Young, is already scheduled to make about $1 million on
Yeah.
endorsements and
Right.
everything, and he's only thrown 22 passes in his college career, and he's going to make over $1 million. I mean, it's crazy. Just think about like players like Trevor Lawrence, what they could have actually made,
Oh yeah.
or Reggie Bush, who's now trying to get his Heisman Trophy back. It's kind of crazy with everything that is going on. I used to be huge against students getting paid.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, they're there to be student athletes,
Right.
and so schools are still going to give scholarships, and they're still going to get their room and board paid for. Like you said that schools cannot pay the athletes. So no, they can't pay for their performance on the field. Um, they can't pay for their likeness. So schools can still earn the money with jerseys sales with their athlete numbers, because like you said earlier, athletes can't wear the team jersey, can't wear their school jersey and everything. So schools will still be able to profit from jersey numbers and everything. I don't think they're gonna be able to put names on the back, just like they still haven't.
Yeah, but it's just like, so here's what's going through my mind, right? You get some high school kid, right? Because we all know who the most recruited players are in the country even before they go to college, right? So those lists are out there, everybody knows them. I just have this image of like, so let's go back to Nick Saban. He goes and visits, this prime linebacker, playing in, DeSoto, Texas or something. So they have their visit. He walks out the door. There's another knock at the door. It's some agent or somebody who makes their living following behind and saying, "Hey, let me help you with that decision. You want to do this because there's more lucrative opportunities, in San Diego than there is in Nebraska or something like that." And maybe the kid's got parents or family that'll help him make the smart decision, or maybe he just sees a figure of, I'm going to make $50,000 going to San Diego. I don't want to go to Nebraska, according to this guy. So I think it's just, it lends itself to some kind of shady possibilities, especially when you're talking about schmoozing, high schoolers and things like that, which could happen, so.
Right. I mean, and so that's one of the things you just talked about. An agent follows up a coach. So the players are allowed to hire agents to help them. Those agents can't put in their contracts with stipulations saying, "Hey, if you do make it to the pros, I'm still your agent."
Exactly.
Because I read something today that the NFL has told their agents saying, "Hey, you can't do this. This is not going to be something that's going to happen. We're going to keep an eye on this." Or even like the pro sports are telling the agents saying, "Hey, you can't put that in there. You're still like, I'm only going to do this for you if you're going to continue to keep me as your agent when you do turn pro."
Right. Right.
So I figure that's good for the pro organizations they're going to be able to try and help them that way as well.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. They came out and they couldn't really prevent it. I get that. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court or something, but it just seems so open to interpretation right now, and it depends on what state currently. If you live in Florida, you got these rules, and in Texas, you got these rules, that kind of thing. And I don't know. It just feels like, and then there is, maybe it's a kind of a pie in the sky notion or something like that, but is a college athlete going to be doing what they're doing for the love of the game, or because they're getting paychecks from all these different places? And are they going to bring isn't Nick Saban going to be able to enforce the things that he can enforce when some kid's making $200,000 plus off the field? I mean, in an extreme situation, does he really care? I mean, I'm going to put my best effort, sure, but I've got to get away from practice to go do my photo shoot at 8:00 tonight or something like that. So it just seems like there could be a lot of abuse, and I would hate for that to hurt the game,
Right.
And that's the bottom line. So
It'll definitely be interesting to see how it unfolds in the next couple of years with it growing and maybe an actual federal law being passed by the Supreme Court to figure out what we're actually going to be doing with it. Have you happened to see any other deals that players have struck with companies?
I saw. I mean, it's happening already. Apparently, there was some. I thought I saw something. I may get the facts wrong here, but there was some guy in, I want to say Miami, that is offering to represent every Miami athlete with, um, whatever the arrangement is. But here's the kicker: like alumni can contribute to this guy, and then they have a way of making it perfectly legal under the laws to, in essence, pay players, but it's really under the whole endorsements thing. So I
Right.
don't know the details of it, obviously, but that's a case where this guy apparently is trying to take advantage of the situation, and again, it's perfectly legal. And there you go. And then I saw some other things. What will be kind of funny is like, what are these athletes going to promote, right?
Right.
You got the Trevor Lawrences of the world that will probably be doing, Rolex watches or something. But imagine it like, I don't know, North Dakota. I'm trying to think of a small college. Some kid who gets $500 to, come fish in my pond over here or something. It'll be interesting to see what kind of endorsements come out of this.
That was the very first one to go through was they're the Cavender twins. They're volleyball players for Fresno State.
Yeah.
So they were the first ones to actually sign a deal, and they signed it with Boost Mobile. To work with Boost Mobile, they're already apparently huge on social media, probably with TikTok and Instagram. Um, and so they were able to work with a tech company called Icon Source to find opportunities to get them endorsed.
Yeah.
So they signed with them, and they've also signed with 6 Star Pro Nutrition. So they were the first ones to make a deal with their name, image, and likeness with an endorsement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that happened. That happened July 1st.
Well, and
The
that
first day it could happen.
It kind of brings up an interesting point, right? We all think about college football, right? Or probably college basketball too, like
Mhm.
big names that make the newspapers and people know them. But if you're in volleyball or, I don't know, rowing or lacrosse,
Lacrosse, yep.
yeah, and you're getting these kind of endorsements because you're smart and you have social media accounts that's doing really well. Again, you kind of get back to I'm going to take my payday
hmm
in college, and once I've got that payday, I don't know as I'm going to be as motivated to be the best I can be and put in all the hard work you need to be these kind of elite athletes in college. And so I don't know, maybe it won't go that way, but time will tell, I guess.
Hey, it might change basketball as well. The one and done rule.
Yep.
Kids like, hey, I might be a second round pick, maybe make 6 figures most,
Yep.
and I can stay in college and still make 6 figures, and then maybe get better and end up making 7 figures when I do go pro.
Which is another funny thing. Now that you just made me think of it, right? So how a lot of athletes, especially in college football, well, college basketball too, they'll do their freshman, sophomore year, maybe redshirt or whatever it is, and then they jump ship, right? I don't want to risk getting injured. I don't, I want to make my bid for the NFL, for example. And sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes that's a really bad decision on their part. But picture the scenario where, as long as you're in college, you're making $200,000 a year. The second you step out of college to go enter yourself into the draft, that may go down to zero, depending on how, when you're no longer a college athlete and now you're trying to be a professional. So that's kind of an interesting spin on it. Is it going to make athletes want to stay
Right.
for the full 4 years if they're getting paid really well? So I don't know.
Especially if they want to increase their draft stock.
Yeah, exactly.
When they do go pro.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah, definitely be a crazy couple of years to see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
But another thing that could change college sports is, especially with college football, is the new college football playoff expansion to increase it from 4 teams that started in 2014 to increase it to 12 teams.
Yeah.
To add a lot more teams into the mix of possibly winning the national championship for college football.
Yeah.
Was it when I did the research? They've still got a 5-year deal
Yep.
left with the current
I saw that too.
current rules. But with what the article I found was CBS Sports by Barrett, I think it's Sale.
Mhm.
It could still take effect in the next possible 2 years, is what they were saying, to expand it to 12 teams.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts on that. So I'm all about what is a high caliber matchup and teams playing each other. And going from 4 to 12 is just that's a huge leap, and adding additional teams. And I actually, so actually, I want to play a game with you, Trey.
All righty. See what we got.
And it's called "Do You Like the Matchups" game. And,
Fair
and
enough.
what I did earlier today is I looked at the AP top 25 as it sits right now. We know the football season hasn't started yet, but they still
Okay.
have rankings. And I'm going to start going down the list and look at 4 teams, then look at 6 teams, then look at 8 teams, and look at 10. And you tell me if you like these teams getting
Okay.
into the playoff, right?
I'm game.
So top 4, no brainer, right? Right now it's Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and actually A&M. They have as number 4.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to argue that. Those are the big teams. So that's 4 teams. You go to 6 teams, and then you take in Notre Dame and Oklahoma. I still like that.
Yeah, they've all been there before. They've all competed.
Yep.
Maybe not well with Notre Dame, but they've all been there before.
Yeah. But that's still high caliber teams. I would love to see Notre Dame and Oklahoma play in a playoff in addition to those top 4 teams. So I'm cool with that. Then you go down to 7 and 8, and you bring in Georgia and you bring in Cincinnati. So Cincinnati's interesting. I kind of like this because, as you know, every year there's the Coastal Carolinas of the world or
Cincinnati. Yep.
Right, exactly. Who have this really awesome record and they just, complain that they didn't get into the top 4 if they were undefeated and stuff like that. Well, now you got wiggle room to bring one of those Power 5 conference teams into the mix. And I kind of like it. I don't have a problem with that. So I'm cool with 8.
Okay.
Hey, are you cool so far?
I'm great so far. This all sounds great.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper. I get 9 and 10 would bring in Iowa State and Northwestern. Here's where it starts to get a little murky to me. Now, I love Iowa State. We took a trip last summer and we went through Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa, and we went by Iowa State. I became a fan. Go Cyclones! But that's when it starts to go. I don't know. Are we still talking? Marquee matchups and games you would like to see, and I think it starts to feel a little more diluted. Not that those are bad teams, Iowa State, Northwestern, but
right.
Yeah. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? Are you in on the 10?
Oh, I'm still fine with 10. The more football, the better. The more opportunities, especially last couple of years, players are starting to opt out of the bowl games because they want to go get ready for the draft. They don't want to get hurt in the bowl game. So kids more likely, hey, I can still win this. I can still go on and win. I can still play for a championship. So they're more likely to stay and play for a better bowl game. Because I'm watching one game last year. I think it was a Texas game. Texas, Sam Ellinger pulled himself like, hey, I'm only gonna play like a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
And then you got to see like Texas still ended up playing well. I forgot who that freshman they brought in.
Yeah.
But it was not as exciting to watch. You want to watch these big name players who sit out. So I'm all for another 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean there also should be something on the line too, right? I see because everybody wants to get into the top 4, but if you can't because there's only 4 teams, then you're just trying to get the best bowl game you can pick up, which we all know doesn't mean much of anything other than a paycheck for the school. So let me just round this out. So if you go to 12, then you've got BYU in the mix, and you have Indiana in the mix. So that would be your those would be your 12 teams in the playoffs if you went by the current rankings. I don't know.
So when I see that, I think was out of those 12, I think 3 were non-Power 5. I think it was Cincinnati, BYU, and no, Indiana's Big Ten.
Oh yeah,
Indiana's Big Ten. It was BYU, Cincinnati. There's one more that you mentioned,
I think.
or is it just those two? And
I
then
think.
Notre Dame, the individual.
Yeah, well, Notre Dame's
Yeah,
always.
yeah. So I mean, that gives, like I said, that gives more teams an opportunity. I think it's just a lot more exciting to have a bigger draw, more teams in the mix.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I
now, have you seen the format that they suggested for the college football playoff for
think I
12?
did. They're gonna have. Aren't they gonna have like a? As I recall, the top four teams get a bye.
So not top four.
Oh.
It's top four conference champions. So
Oh.
you can't have two SEC teams get a bye. It's the top four conference champions.
That's interesting.
So like if LSU is number 2, but Alabama's number 1, LSU wouldn't get a bye. Alabama would. So the top four conference champions get a bye.
Gotcha.
From there, the remaining top 4 teams would play a home game, not at a neutral site. They would play a home game.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then after that first round, then it's neutral sites, it's bowl games, quarterfinal, semifinal, championship.
Okay.
So that first round is home games for those 4 teams.
So given the list I just gave you, well, I guess I'd have to rethink that because Alabama, Ohio State,
and you had A&M
Clemson
as number 4.
You got to throw A&M out, right?
Right.
SEC, and then you would take a Big Ten. You would take.
So you already had Big Ten, Ohio State.
Oh yeah, sorry. Pac-12. Pac-12.
Would it drop all the way down to the Pac-12?
I'm sorry?
Would it drop all the way down to the Pac-12 with the list you had?
Well, you said the 4 conferences. I assume that was SEC, Big 12, Big 10, and Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had the Pac-12 champion going into this year, I don't.
Well, then it would be, you would have, because you said Alabama number 1, Ohio State number 2. That's SEC, Big 10, then Clemson, ACC, and then you have Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma was down to number 6.
But you said Georgia at 5, right?
Yeah.
So that would be Oklahoma would be your 4th conference champion.
I got you. So I'm sorry. So the 4 conferences would be what again? SEC.
Oh, so it's usually 5 conferences. It's
right.
SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, Pac-12.
Right.
So those are your Power 5. Now I don't know if this would include, like, let's say Cincinnati jumps up into the top 5, and they are a conference champion.
Yeah,
that means they would get a bye.
It's worth trying. I definitely like the idea of more than 4 teams because 4 teams does seem a little restrictive, right? Especially when you got really high caliber teams sort of on the outside looking in, like an Oklahoma or somebody like Georgia or something like that.
Yeah, Georgia, who happens to lose 2 games to Alabama, and they're all of a sudden out of it.
Exactly.
Everybody else they wiped off the floor.
Yeah, so I like having more teams. I just don't know going down to 12. I mean, that seems just. I mean, if I had my way, I might kind of ease into it, go from 4 to 6 or 4 to 8, and kind of see, what happens. But you raise a good point. They're going to be playing anyway. They're just going to be playing in a bowl game, the kennel dog food bowl game or something like that, any kind of bowl game. So it definitely gives it more interest. It also obviously stretches out the playoffs because if I do the math right, for you to say you weren't one of the top 4, you'd have to play 4 games to win the national championship.
If you're the top 4, you'd have to win 3. You'd have to win the quarter, the semi, and then the championship.
Right. If you're top 4, if you're not,
so if you're out of that, you have to win 4.
Yeah, you got 4. So that
extends it to a 16-game season.
Yeah.
If you make it that far, which I mean, this isn't out of the realm of possibility because Clemson had 15 games with Deshaun Watson back. He still won 15 games in a year. So at most, it's adding 1 more game. For the longest season.
Yeah, so it might bring up some really interesting matchups. Given the rules that they have, it just feels like 12 is a bit too much there. But again, that make for some interesting matchups. And on any given Sunday, or given
or
Saturday,
Saturday in this case.
yeah, any given Saturday,
Should be.
a BYU might beat a Clemson. You just never know.
You never know.
So,
Well, so I mean, that's kind of why I want more teams, since the college football playoffs been happening since 2014. So for was that 7 years? We've
Yeah.
had 4 teams win. That's it.
oh wow, yeah,
Only 4 teams. Alabama's won it 3 times. Ohio State won it once. Clemson's won it twice, and LSU won it.
Oh yeah.
So they're 4 great schools. They produce every year. Except maybe one of them might have a down year, but they're in it all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I mean going to the playoff system with just 4 teams is fantastic. I mean it took all the every once in a while, as there would be controversy back before they had the playoff system about this is the game that decides it. Well, no, we think this is the game that decides it. And it would just sometimes it would be kind of not settled. So and then people argue like crazy even for the top 4, which I think
right.
is awesome.
Well, they're still going to have their 13 panel to decide the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about that. I actually love the committee. I think that is fantastic. They used to have that stupid BCS thing that was some computer algorithm that would kick out and that was horrible. I don't know how many years they did that, but to have the committee choose, I think is really cool, because they seem to do a good job. I've never in all the years they've been doing it have people always argue, oh, I wanted A&M in, but they seem to do a really good job with who are the best and taking in considerations of schedule and how much you won the game by, quality of play and all that kind of stuff, which you can't really program a computer to do,
right?
Or lay out rules for. And I bet you this, for a little trivia for your listeners here. You know where the committee meets every Saturday? Right here in our backyard in Grapevine, Texas.
Oh wow, that makes sense. Central location.
Yeah, they meet there every Saturday every year when it kicks in. It doesn't start at the beginning of the year.
I think it usually starts about week 7 or 8 of the college football season.
Yeah. So my wife and I were actually over there one Saturday watching football on the big old screens that they have in the sports bar over there. We're like, somewhere in this building, the committee. We didn't go looking in conference rooms or anything, but they were all floating around somewhere, I'm sure. So that's pretty cool. But so
college football playoff, like I said, that might not happen for at least 2 more years. We're still gonna have a 4-team playoff for at least 2, contracted for 5 more.
Yep.
That gets college football's right around the corner. Are you excited for any teams in particular coming up?
It's funny. A little bit about my background. I grew up in Massachusetts, and football, high school football was fairly big, not as big as it is here in Texas, but college football was like BC, Boston College, occasionally, and in Boston University even more occasionally. And I had some friends in high school that got recruited by Pittsburgh and Penn State. Knew a few people that went to Penn State, so you kind of knew those names, but it wasn't like craziness. And then, so it wasn't until I was like got my first job. They moved me to Michigan and to Texas, and I remember meeting 2 people in my work team. One went to Tennessee, and one went to Alabama, and that's all they could talk about was college football. And I was like, what? This is foreign to me. I don't really know this. But so the bottom line with all that is I really don't have an affiliation with any team. Trey, but my stepdaughter Paige went to Arkansas, and my nephew Thomas currently goes to Texas. So there's a little bit of a tie in there, but I don't really have a strong affiliation, which is kind of nice, right? Because going into every year, I just want to see the best teams and the most interesting teams, make it to the top. So I'm always excited for college football season. I can't wait. And this year they're going back to regular schedule, right? They're not doing this only conference thing that they
Oh,
had.
back to the regular schedule this year.
Right, right. So, oh yeah, I'm very very excited to get it rolling. And college game day, you know every Saturday morning we'll be sitting on that couch watching college game day. I love that show. So can't wait till that gets
Yeah,
cranked up.
Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, those two guys are
Yeah.
top notch.
Yeah, Maria Taylor won't be there this year because you might have heard that she, based on all that controversy about the NBA final, she said, "I'm out of here," and I think she might be going to NBC or something like that. So that sucks because she was really good. But so anyway, oh yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, it should be an exciting year with everything going roughly back to normal.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll be able to see what happens with name, image, and likeness. How many commercials are we going to see with a player all of a sudden in the Arby's
Oh,
commercial?
you know you're going to see it. You know you're going to see it. And actually, I can't wait till college game day says something about that because they'll have some interesting story as we go into the season about all that.
Some weird endorsement that someone signed up for.
Yeah, yeah. So how's Boise State looking this year?
They're I get a magazine every year from about college season, and they have them winning or going to the championship of the MAC Mountain Atlantic Conference. I think it's what it's called.
Yeah,
Atlantic Conference to face against San Diego State. It's gonna be rough. I mean, we went through 5 quarterbacks last year. Our starting one got injured, and then the next one got injured. Against the game against BYU, we were on the 3rd quarterback in the 2nd quarter. So it'll be interesting. We're a younger team this year. I'm excited. They get nationally televised all the time, late night on ESPN. So
that falls right into my example. Not to go back to the whole NIL thing, but you're a high school kid, and you say, okay, you can go to Boise State, and you can advertise hay for
potatoes.
Or you can go to San Diego and we'll surround you with pretty girls and we'll, so some high school kids going, no, I might go to San Diego State, but
it depends on if they hire an agent and what they're actually wanting to do there. So
exactly all that stuff again.
But yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an exciting season. Jim, thank you very much for coming on, our everyday expert today.
You bet.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to Bluebeard Sports Radio.